Nothing is a lock to Oklahoma. All right, here we go. Noah Gordon, member on the channel. Appreciate that. If OU gets everyone from the Sooner Summit that was uncommitted, how realistic is it to land JT, or is it just a dream no matter what? I think it's a dream no matter what because Ohio State is still very much there. And to me, say Adeleye reopening his recruitment makes that slot available. And JT Tuimoloau has been interested in Ohio State from the jump. Oklahoma also has to contend with Larry Johnson Sr. as the defensive tackle coach, defensive line coach at Ohio State. And if you look at the receipts, you see Chase Young, you see Nick Bosa, you see Joey Bosa. You know, you see hitters. You see Draymond Jones, Tyreek Smith, Zach Harrison, Jonathan Cooper. Oklahoma can't show those kinds of receipts. Neville Gallimore, third-round selection. And then a few years ago, Jordan Phillips in the second. Meanwhile, Chase Young is like one of the first dudes off the board. Nick Bosa is one of the first dudes off the board. Joey Bosa is one of the first dudes off the board. If I'm a defensive line recruit, specifically defensive tackle, but defensive line, like edge, I'm going to Ohio State if they want me because Larry Johnson Sr. has shown you that he can develop those dudes into who they want to become, which is some of the highest paid rookies in all of the NFL with opportunities to play long, lengthy careers. It's why guys like Jack Sawyer picked there. I mean, that's how I see it. Let's see. I can see Jacob is okay. Jacob, man, if you're just going to be here antagonizing people, I'm going to put you in timeout. Let me see. What are you hearing on Brian Thomas Jr.? Not a whole lot, dog. Are you still playing Destiny? Yes, of course I'm still playing Destiny. Of course I'm still playing Destiny. Let's see. We got anything else in here worth talking about? Okay. So I want to do this segment on the non-top 10 teams that could be crashing the college football playoff, all right? Because it was Chris Hummer who actually unearthed this at 247 Sports. Last year was the first time in 4 years that we did not have a non-top 10 program make the college football playoff. It's actually the aberration because in 2015, number 12 Clemson made the playoff. 2015, number 19, Oklahoma in the preseason rankings made the playoff. In 2016, number 14, Washington made the playoff. 2017, number 15, UGA, Georgia, made the playoffs. And then 2018, number 12, Notre Dame made the playoff. Again, all preseason rankings, all outside the top 10. So basically, we got a high of number 19. We got a low of number 12. But one of the things that these places all had in common was good to great quarterback play. Deshaun Watson in 2015 for Clemson. Baker Mayfield in 2015 for Oklahoma. Jake Browning at Washington. Jake Fromm at Georgia. Ian Book at Notre Dame. And that's interesting because remember, Ian Book took over that job from Brandon Wimbush after Wimbush wasn't bad. He just wasn't great. And then when Ian Book came in, he convinced everybody that Notre Dame was worthwhile, except when we watched that USC game and they nearly lost to a 5-7 USC team. We're like, don't put that team in the playoff. And then they get railroaded by Clemson 30-3 in the semifinal. That said, Ian Book is the only guy still playing football on this list that is, got a team that's like right there on the cusp of making the playoff. And now that there's no Penn State, there's no Wisconsin, there's no Oregon, there's no Ohio State, they have a shot to make this thing, especially if they can run the ACC and beat Clemson. You beat Clemson on November 7th and you beat them again, you might be the number one team in the country. They also had good to easy strength of schedule, right? Clemson had the 7th hardest schedule in 2015, which is wild because we never think of the ACC as being tough. We always think of the ACC as being soft, and yet the year that Clemson made the playoff in 2015, they played the 7th toughest schedule in all of football. OU played the 22nd toughest schedule, right? Which is not hard, but it ain't easy either. Same thing for Georgia in 2017. They played the 23rd toughest schedule, and they managed to get into that national championship game, into that national championship semifinal, despite what happened in the SEC game. Like, everybody was just on board with those two SEC finalists making the playoff. And then there was Washington, who played the 49th toughest schedule in the country. So we never thought much of that Washington team in 2016 anyway. And then Alabama beat them like they stole something in the semifinals. And then there was Notre Dame, who should have been exposed earlier. The 55th toughest schedule in all of college football. Like, come on, man. We should have known this. And if we take a look at strength of schedule and how it's working out or how good teams are, it's a really good predictor of semifinal success. which gets back to that idea of the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC, the Big 10, the Pac-12, and why we rank those conferences, because if you're talking about the best teams, you want to see them playing the toughest schedules, and usually the toughest schedules are in the SEC, at least over the last 15 to 20 years, right? But this year, Texas, Oklahoma State, North Carolina, Memphis, and Central Florida all could make the college football playoff. Again, there's no Pac-12. There's no Big 10. Texas got Sam Ehlinger at quarterback, who's been getting better each and every year. Jake Smith, Jordan Whittington, Malcolm Epps, that defense, Joseph Asai, and others, they ought to have an opportunity here. They ought to be right there. If they can get past Oklahoma once and then twice, because I would predict both Oklahoma and Texas in the in the Big 12 championship game, then yeah, absolutely. Oklahoma State, it's about Spencer Sanders. According to Pro Football Focus, for which many of y'all want to tell me is great, Spencer Sanders is one of the worst quarterbacks in all of football. And you can't actually argue with that either. He threw 16 touchdown passes. He threw 11 interceptions. That's not even counting how many times that dude put the ball on the ground. And when Tylan Wallace wasn't on the field, he was exposed, right? Had to learn later that Braylon Johnson could actually do this. And then, of course, Chuba Hubbard has his Heisman Trophy caliber season with over 2,000 yards rushing, and he's back again. Then there's North Carolina, who has Sam Howell, who put together an outstanding true freshman season. He returns two guys that caught passes that saw them go over 900 yards receiving. And then there's Chaz Surratt, who's back, who's one of the best linebackers in the country. AP for preseason All-American, had 115 tackles for them. Phil Longo, as offensive coordinator, and Jay Bateman, two of the best tandem coordinators in all of football. And they play one of the easiest schedules in the ACC. They got a shot here, right? You beat up on Charlotte, and then you run through everybody else. You get to Clemson in the ACC championship game or Notre Dame, and you're right there in the playoff. This is a good year for Mack Brown to be Mack Brown. Memphis and Central Florida are interesting, right? Memphis has Kenneth Gainwell, again, an AP preseason first-team running back. And Ryan Silverfield takes over from Mike Norvell, but Ryan Silverfield was defensive coordinator, and they were pretty good. Brady White at quarterback. He's going to be able to find guys like DeMonte Coxey. I expect Memphis to be right there at the end, along with Central Florida, because quiet as it's kept, with a true freshman quarterback, they had the 8th best defense in yards per play and the 5th best offense in yards per play. They had a loss to Tulsa that I think they shouldn't have had. It's a year in which they didn't play for a conference championship last year. I think they'll come back rekindled, ready to go. And Dylan Gabriel ought to be better, right? If you're thinking that Mackenzie Milton's going to be that guy, I'm not going to fight you, but I don't see a problem with Dylan Gabriel continuing to be that dude. I just don't. I really think that Central Florida, Memphis, SMU, all are going to have good things to say this year. Except with SMU, it's going to be interesting with the offense because Rhett Lashley took the job at Miami. Garrett Riley, Lincoln Riley's little brother, is now the coordinator down there at SMU. So we'll see what that looks like. And, of course, you got Shane Buechele coming back, and you got pretty doggone good receivers coming back. So we'll see what that looks like. All right. So if you're asking me out of this group, I would pick North Carolina to make the playoff as the sleeper. I've been bullish on North Carolina basically since the end of the year. And more importantly, I've been bullish on North Carolina since they decided that they wanted to be good. And what I mean by that is they played Clemson as tightly as anybody played Clemson not named LSU. That's not a small thing, right? I thought Wake Forest was going to be able to do something against Clemson. They got beat like they stole something. Everybody else that tried to go at Clemson, including Ampersand U, got dealt with. North Carolina was a failed 2-point conversion away from upsetting a team that had just won the College Football Playoff National Championship and finished number 2 in the country in 2019 after losing in the championship against LSU. Not a small thing, and a thing that we should all keep in mind. All right,